Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of DMP for That's My Podcast. It's Alex back at it. This week, there's been a lot on my mind, but I was thinking, I was like, okay, so I feel like I've kind of been all over with the topics on this podcast. And I figured a good one because I was like, what is something that I haven't really talked about that I still feel like is I can have a personal story to it, but also, something that other people can relate to as well. And so something that I feel like we haven't really gotten too much into is financials and bills. Let me tell you, is probably the worst part of adulting for real. Like, why who thought of this for everything to be transactional? I mean, I guess I understand why and how it works, whatever. I'm like, can we go back to trading shit and stuff or something? Or at least I don't know, I think this generation is definitely the economy right now is probably what I heard somebody say it's it was worse than some terrible time back in the day. Pretty much saying that when you actually look at the pricing of minimum wage to how much it takes to live in general. Okay, one sec. Okay, and we're back. Sorry. If there's a weird cut. I'm dog sitting right now, which goes into today's episode, but I'm dog sitting right now. I'm on Rover. Oh my goodness. This is just a side note. This dog has been some work, let me tell you. It's been a minute since I've watched a dog that has been this bad. He doesn't sleep through the night. He begs all the time. He's tried to steal food off of my lap. He barks at literally everything. He just doesn't listen, and whenever you're walking, he needs to go out, And he'll whine to go outside, and then you get outside and he just will decide to just stand there. And he's literally at least 85 pounds, and he's a bulldog, and it's just he'll just stand there and stand there. And I'm like, come on, come on, which is, it's so funny because his name is Slim and he's so fat. He's overweight. And so I've been calling him Slim Thick all week, but that's just a side note. I'm on Rover for some extra cash, so I have the ability to do more while I'm here in LA, but also I guess it's kind of like a, you know, give and take, because you can also only do so much whenever you're dog sitting, just because you need to be there, especially when you're getting paid for it. But yeah, anyways, that was a side note. He barks at everything. So if there's some random cuts in this episode, that would be why, because I'm trying to keep him close, but he doesn't listen too well. So hopefully by the end of this week, he'll be trained after being with us for this long. And just we're trying to teach him different things. So hopefully he'll be even better whenever his owner picks him up, but we shall see. He's 8, so he's already stuck in his ways. But yeah, okay, so just going on, I believe I was kind of touching on, how when you look at the minimum wage to how much it costs to live and survive here, not just in LA, but everywhere in the world, honestly, the ratio just doesn't add up, and it's the worst it's been in a really, really long time. So, this is not the best time to be adulting, but at the same time, we have so much opportunity, so it is a good time. We have to look at the positives and the open doors, but in general, just adulting is really difficult, and probably the most thing that's difficult about it is the money aspect, let's be honest. So this episode, I really just wanted to touch on, bills, budgeting, and just things they don't teach you in school. For why didn't we have, I mean, I've heard some people who have had classes on different things in financials and stuff like that, but in general, I think it should be definitely a class that kids have for at least starting in high school. Even middle school could be helpful, because that's when I got a job. But we'll take what we can get. But anyways, going on, so it's kind of like I just wanted to kind of give tips and tricks that I've honestly learned since I've kind of been in tough spots with money lately. Um, if you're in the same boat, or even if you're not, these are just some good things to know. One thing is to think of the timing of your purchases. Like, think it through. So instead of having all your bills going out, like on your paycheck, this is like if you get paid biweekly or whatever, instead of having all your bills come out on like the first of the month, or, at the end of the month, let's try to break it up. So if you can, try to have certain bills go out like when you have your first paycheck, and then more bills when you have like your second. Some things like that can be really helpful, because then you're not spending, 2 weeks completely broke. You can kind of balance it out to where, as long as you're budgeting, you can kind of have a little bit of money, a little bit, throughout the entire month, versus having no money and then some money. Because it's really not fun to have to say no to literally everything, or, whatever, if you have certain bills come out. I know the one that has rent for me is always kind of the worst, because, I try to break it up. So I try to save half my rent on one check, and then the other half, obviously on the second paycheck, since I get paid twice in 1 month. And sometimes I'll like dip into that money that I saved back on my first paycheck, and like, just to keep on living. And so whenever rent is actually due, I'm like, well, fuck, now I have to take even more money from this next paycheck to actually be able to pay the bill. So, thinking it through, and also sticking with the budget that you set in place. Also, do not, do not use the apps where you can get your paycheck quicker. It's not worth it. You'll just spend it all quicker, get it quicker, spend it quicker. And just because you're getting it faster than you would have, I can see sometimes when it comes in handy. Maybe you're starting a new job, and so, it's like a 3-week period instead of 2 weeks or something like that for your paycheck, something like that. But in general, try not to make it a habit, because just because you're getting it faster, it does not mean that you're making more money. That money was just the money that you're supposed to get later on. So it's not making the amount of money that you're getting anymore, which sometimes I feel like it can kind of trick your brain into thinking that, like, okay, I'm having money that I wasn't supposed, like, how people view cash sometimes, like, oh, cash isn't real. It's like kind of the same type of thing. It's like, okay, that money that you're pulling out is the money that you're supposed to get later. So don't think that it's just extra money that you just get to do whatever you want with. And I think it's better to be, broke for a few days or for 1 week versus like 3 weeks. Like if you pull all your money out early or whatever, or like to just not be able to pay your bills in general, which kind of leads me into the next topic, for budgeting. Things add up so much. And so if you're spending without thinking, try to force yourself to think about it. Like something that I'm trying to do lately is at the end of my day to just look at my pay stubs. I'm not trying to stress myself out or whatever, but I'm trying to hold myself accountable, because, it can be difficult sometimes, like with a card, or, even if with cash, some people say like whenever you have cash, it seems harder to spend it because you can see it leaving. I don't necessarily feel that way. I feel like I can spend cash just as quick as I spend money on my card. But at the same time, I just feel like, I don't know, I think this can help your relationship with money, because you're just holding yourself accountable, which I'm kind of talking in circles with that, but I just think it can be smart to hold yourself accountable for it and force yourself to look at what you're spending money on and to think about it. Okay, like, was that worth it? Your money is your money, and no matter what, your money is going to leave you. Money comes and goes. So it's not necessarily looking at it in the sense of like, I should have spent $0 today. It's more of like, okay, was that purchase worth it to me? How much money do I have left now? Would I have wanted to spend that on something else? Or do I like that, And then you have a better idea of what to budget for in the future. And also, you're just kind of helping your relationship with the money by really thinking it through and not being so hard on yourself all the time by thinking, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have done that. Like if it was worth it to you, it was worth it to you. And that's what you should spend your money on. Another way to, think about budgeting and to help you is writing out all your bills that you have for like each paycheck and kind of check marking as you go, as those like bills, as you pay those bills, you know? I feel like writing everything out, not only does it help you remember all the bills that you need to pay, because that is terrible when you think like, oh my gosh, I actually have some extra money or whatever. And then you get a text or an email being like, oh, this didn't go through, or still have this check coming up, this bill coming up that you didn't know about, or not necessarily that you didn't know about, but you kind of forgot about. So, make sure you write out all your bills beforehand. I think it can be super helpful. You can even go as far as, not only writing it all out, but once you figure out the total amount, transfer that money that you get into an account. That way you can't spend it. If you have direct deposits or, auto pay, activated to different things, attach it to different accounts in a smart fashion. And so, if you're gonna, if you have an account, a checking account and a savings account, maybe you make your auto pays and your certain direct deposits go into your savings versus your checking. That way you can put all your extra money into your checking and do all your bills through savings. And not only will that help you, if you attach auto pay and stuff like that, not only does that help you not forget to pay any bills, but also I feel like it gets you in a good habit, because sometimes I feel like you think, oh, if you see that money in the account, it's something that you can use. But that's not always the case. Just because you got that paycheck that day does not mean that that whole paycheck honestly is like yours to spend, because it's just the fact of life. It's not necessarily fair, but we all have bills. But it can help you if you don't necessarily see it all the time. You can kind of out of sight, out of mind. So I feel like that kind of helps you make sure that your bills are paid on time, and just in general, another way to get your relationship with money on a good track. Also, moving on from like budgeting, just in general, here are just some like tips that I honestly just learned recently whenever I was kind of down bad, not able to pay some of the bills. One thing is, don't be scared to look at different payment plans or options, like different programs to help your financials. There are so many different things out there that you might not have known about. Ask around and, Google something like what's the worst that can happen. So really like look into it, if you can't pay your rent, look on rent, like look for different renting payment plans or options that you have of like ways that you can get aid to do it. Same with different other bills you have, maybe your car, maybe you can look into refinancing different things. Like if you have different loans, you really never know. And also going past that point of just Googling something, call places. The other day, not the other day, it was a little bit back, but I wasn't able to pay my car payment. I was kind of freaking out. I've never had a late payment on my car, which I got like a loan through my bank and everything like that. But, and I know late payments aren't the end of the world or anything like that, but, it's just not something that I want to get into the habit of. But anyways, I called my bank and was like, you know what, I was just straight up, I don't know if they necessarily like that, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to really talk to them again. So I was just kind of like, you know what, I don't have is there any type of way that I can get any type of assistance, or, I can get an extension on paying this payment, because right now I don't have it. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. There's actually this option where we can just skip this payment as a whole for the whole month. And you don't have to pay until your next payment is due. And it doesn't even add an extra fee. It's like, what? I didn't know that. They didn't tell me that. And so it's just, or maybe it was in the fine print. I don't know. It's hard for me to read that. But Same with like a credit card, something that called on that one too. And the girl was like, you know, not gonna lie, this is like, she was super chill. She was like, not gonna lie, this is something that I've done before. And it's kind of a work around the system. You might not have the money now, but you can set up a payment that's at a later date. And then, even though it will look as a late payment on there at first, since you called and you set up that payment, you can normally get that late payment marking, taken off your record because you had a payment set up already to pay for, that minimum balance. Like, who would have known? I mean, maybe you do know that. Maybe you're like, taking a shot in the dark and, you kind of try that. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is so nice. Finding different ways around your payments, to help you, especially on those one-off situations. Obviously you can't do that every time, like with all your bills. You can't just like keep on skipping. You don't have unlimited skips. This is not Spotify Premium. This is, the free version. Let's be real. So you don't have unlimited skips or anything like that, but it's still just something that is helpful. And it was honestly like, it really made my day having those types of things because, I was kind of freaking out, and just to learn that there's more things available to me that I didn't know about. It's like, it's just exciting, I guess, because when you're an adult, sometimes you can feel really alone. It's not that you feel like you're the only person that can't pay your bills, obviously, but it's just like, okay, what am I gonna fucking do for real? So, none of us need to be ashamed, and there's resources out there. So don't let your ego get in the way or be embarrassed. Just look, and a lot of times you can find different things available to you. Now going into a subject that I honestly am still learning so much more about myself, but just a good topic in general to discuss, and something that you need to know if you are in that, transitioning into your adult life, is credit. Oh my goodness. The biggest tip that, you learn, I feel, or at least like I learned, which I decided not to listen to, but is don't spend money that you don't have, you know? So credit is not your money. It's the bank's money or whatever, that company's money. And you're essentially just borrowing it. So when you're first starting out, especially if you feel like you do not have a good relationship with money, so credit is something that you literally have to do anything. If you want to get a loan, like, so if you want to get a car, if you want to get an apartment, if you want to get a house, whatever you want to do, like, it's pretty much it is necessary as an adult to have some type of credit. And so if you don't have a good relationship with money, a lot of times that can seem super daunting. I put off having a credit card until I was like 22, I think, or 21. Like, I recently got a credit card just because I was so nervous that I was going to fuck it up, because, like, growing up, I did not see a good relationship with money, especially on credit cards. Like, parents maxed out, not good. I could go more into their situation, but I don't want to put them on blast. But essentially, growing up in a family where I didn't see them necessarily being responsible with the money. I saw them opening up more credit cards and more credit cards so that they could live the way they wanted, or, even just get by. And, then it put them in such a sucky situation because, your credit just tanks. So if you feel like you're kind of in that type of position, get the credit card, look at what's available. There's so many different credit cards out there, and look for something with like the least amount of responsibility, a really low allowance, and look for something that maybe has like good points for you, or good type of a system for you. Find what works for you. And not only just thinking about credit cards, but now, there's other lines of credit in like Afterpay or Klarna or like Sezzle, where you can kind of do your payments afterwards or whatever. You can pay in installments. So essentially like credit. And just another tip, Afterpay is still taking the same amount of money. Just because it's only taking $11 or $90, whatever. Just because it's only taking that right now, that day, or in 2 weeks from now, it does not mean that you're not paying the full 300, 400, $60 even, whatever the amount is. And you might even be paying more too if you look at interest. So you really need to be smart with those types of things. Weigh it out. Is it really worth it to have it right now? It's super helpful, I'm not going to lie, on Afterpay. Like if you're needing something, and sometimes paying in installments is not all bad, but at the same time, you just have to keep in mind that it's something that you still have to pay on. So if you're already struggling and living paycheck to paycheck and you're not having that extra money, maybe try to hold off on the afterpays and different stuff like that, just because then those installments are going to need to be paid at a later date, and you might not have the money whenever it comes around, and then you're just kind of fucked. So you really need to think about it. Also, another way to view a credit card that I just thought of too is, if you open up a line of credit, try not to view it as, you have all this money, view it as just gas money or just grocery money. You know, it's essentially another bill. It's not extra money. So just think about things like that whenever you're going into having a credit card and what you're going to spend it on. Also, with Afterpay, don't forget that you can also get extensions on that. If you go into like the app, you can normally get extensions on those payments, just a little tidbit. And that's another way, looping into, if you do end up getting those installments and having to pay those, you can break it up just like your paycheck. So if you use an extension, it'll go at that later date. So maybe you bought something on the 7th, and so normally you have to pay it on your first paycheck round. You can do the extension once, and then, maybe you don't have to pay it until the 16th or the 17th then. So then it goes on to your next paycheck, the second paycheck that you get. So it kind of helps break it up. So just little tidbits and things about credit. And, just kind of wrapping it up, that was pretty much all that I had to share about like little things that I've just recently been learning and that I've kind of learned along the way. Money, you could talk about it for forever, but, you know, just kind of going over like a recap of, what we discussed. First things first is just stay organized, write it all out. Something that I learned was that if you just act oblivious to the issues that you have with money, they will always come back. Just because you try not to put any energy or focus into your student loans does not mean that you still do not have student loans. It doesn't just make them disappear. So bills don't just disappear. So, just something to keep in mind is really don't be scared to look at the situation that you're in. It's better to apply that energy into figuring out a solution versus using energy to not even think about it whenever it's something that normally would be stressing you out. Have a balance with it, but if you stay organized, write it all out, figure out plans, talk to your friends or talk to your family, like about things like that. I think it can really help you ease your mind about those bills that you have. And then next tip is just finding what works for you. So, try different tactics. What works for me might not work for you, especially if, your relationship with money is different from mine. So figure out what that relationship is and then just kind of go from there. Is it that you need to focus on how you can pay your bills on time? Is it that you have some debt that you're trying to figure out? Is it that you're just trying to figure out better ways to not live paycheck to paycheck? It's like not even that you're struggling on the amount of money, but you just have issues spending. So, different things require different tactics. And also the thought process of just like thinking, what's the worst that can happen? Just ask, just Google it, just reach out, just call, just email, use the chat bot if you don't want to call, like whatever you got to do. But it's not bad to just ask and see if you can do an extension or if there's a skip payment, if there's anything available for you. And maybe also ask people that that you feel like are financially stable for tips. That's not something that you have to be embarrassed about either. So, ask them about credit, ask them if they know of any type of, different like financial meetings, or, there's like cohorts that I've seen through my work. And that's another thing is, talk to your work, see if there's any type of benefits or perks that you can look into, or classes that might help you with your financials and figure out what you need to do. So, there's just so many things out there and available to us. So don't feel alone, don't feel embarrassed. Just look things up and talk to people and talk about it. You should, I feel like it's kind of like, I can't even think about the word, but I feel like sometimes people think it's like a bad thing to talk about how much you make, or, what your bills are like, different stuff like that. It's like almost a touchy topic. And for why? It's something that we all deal with. It's something that we all have to do. So make it an open discussion and discuss things and see what's going to be best for you and how you can handle it. Because I can tell you that you can handle it. So, just believe in yourself and take it day by day. But thanks everybody for listening to this episode. I hope there are some good things in there for you, some good tips and tricks. And as always, if you think of anything that you want me to talk about, or, provide my insight on, or, if there's just a story that you want to hear, feel free to let me know. And I hope you have a good rest of your week. Again, thanks for all the support and love, and I appreciate you all. So have a great day. Bye.